Okay, we got some time to do some brainstorming. I think there's some good topics on here. Um, a lot of times I felt uncomfortable talking about a lot of these topics in college because, in the black community, they have a lot of moral authority when it comes to struggle. So, a lot of times you'll hear about the struggle Olympics that black culture plays with Jewish culture. But the majority of Jewish culture's struggle Olympics is based off of fraudulence because when you own all the corporations that own mainstream media, you can kind of say history is whatever it is. So history is written by the victors, and um, all we can do to kind of pass our time is basically count down until martyrdom, because what happens is the more truth you tell, the more difficult your life becomes. So uh, they encourage this no snitching thing because what they don't want is for any culture of truth to be told. Because if you start snitching, that first of all, they want suburbs and the city to be two separate entities, but they want us to live by the same hip hop rules. So you see how when this quarter zip trend, became popular, all of a sudden Pooh Shiesty is released when just a few years ago they were trying to mock him about how difficult it was for him to be in the jails. So they simultaneously want us to fear Cook County Jail and all the other correctional facilities um, because it's a place where black men who actually have honorable, dignified ways of living, morally internally in their character. What do rappers always say? The real ones are all dead or in jail. So neither of those two outcomes are things that any suburban child wants. So what do they make us do? They make us fear those eventualities. But as you get older, what you realize is that the more you want to live your life with integrity, the more they are going to threaten you with said outcomes. Think about Guantanamo Bay. Guantanamo Bay is a real place, but 9/11 was a fraudulent act. So we went to war and we spent billions, maybe even trillions of dollars, and gave it to all the military defense contractors, Raytheon and all those places. And, even maybe Texas Instruments may have some defense things. So Texas Movement should as well. So Texas Movement should have a defense department. And we should get the war dog money. So because if Jonah Hill and Andrew whatever can make a movie about making money by defrauding the government, why can't I do it? Okay. And remember, kids, if you're creative enough, they will find new ways to assassinate you. Remember the name Christopher Dorner. Remember the name Micah Johnson. Okay? Never in the history of time has a drone robot ever been used to assassinate an American citizen. But what happened in Tulsa? Okay? When were the first bombs dropped on American citizens? In Tulsa. When black people tried to be independent financially. Because God forbid anybody live in this world without a Jew taking a piece of it. Fuck you. Okay, spiritual versus sexual androgyny. We talked about the Vic brothers, quarterback styles. Anytime the world has compressed black peoples, they, through direct spiritual communication, they're able to create and invent new ways of communication based out of love and care for each other. So, even if football was created by, slavery things. Okay, that's something over there in the gas meter. Okay. I've had chimneys blow up in previous apartment buildings, so, they want to have these, you hear the beeping in the background? They want to have these distractions that prevent us from discussing these topics. So let's talk about the most important things. The reason I'm so adamant about learning about the history of sports in America and the black leadership styles that have come before me is that the the language of kinesthetic intelligence is a pure language. And I told you about the eye test that a lot of players use to um, discover who is real and who is fake in the world of sports. That's a way we communicate. So, whether Deion Sanders is signed to some type of you know weird contract, or if Shador has signed some type of weird contract that has all these stipulations that require him to wear women's underwear and stuff like that as a humiliation ritual. The fact remains is that when we saw Deion do the things we did, we never saw things like that before. We never saw Barry Sanders type of athletes before. When I was younger, I modeled my running back style off of Barry Sanders. But in the wing T offense, it's a very rigid. You must take this exact path. You must wait for your guard to pull, and you must wait for the second guard to cut off the first guard's block, and then you must find the guard, and then you must cut back according to the down blocking of the tackle, and then and only then are you allowed to run. So before you can actually be an athlete yourself, you must literally sit and wait and wait and wait and wait for the goodwill of your offensive lineman to be displayed, because your athleticism and your genetic kinesthetic gift cannot be exposed until everybody else is paid first. And what you're seeing with Texas Movement International is that same type of delayed gratification insult. But what you fail to remember is that I was raised by the greatest house nigger of all time. So, this is not new for me. Imagine being taught delayed gratification and the expectation of never receiving. It's almost enough to turn a pastor's child atheist. But that too is a temptation. They want you to disrespect your father's office. I'm not disrespecting my father's office. I'm disrespecting him as a man, because he has earned it, every bit of it. But the office of your father must be held at the highest pinnacle of respect, as long as you can stand it. Okay? That type of currency cannot deflate. And you see how they are trying to make a mockery of it. Because if you allow it to deflate, when it comes your turn to sit in the chair, in the office chair, you can only use that level of respect as a precedent for what you can ask for. You see? So it's very important to understand the sacrifices of your ancestors, because when you go through that stage of your development, you're going to want the respect that is due to you. And you can only ask for the respect that you've given. And the reason why they don't want to pay me is because I paid my dues, according to every plantation owner's system. And they don't want to pay up. They are renegers. Okay. So I mentioned when Michael Vick ripped a hole in Minnesota's culture during that game. I believe it was at the Metrodome at that time. When an African American leader has too much power in the culture, there must be an execution. Eddie Griffin has talked about this. Thank you for giving us the gift of NNN News. It's very informative and entertaining, and I take a lot of cues from your delivery. And I believe we have a mutual friend through 1 degree of separation. When you think about Tim Tebow versus Cam Newton at Florida, who was seen as the righteous quarterback? Okay. Now, can Tim Tebow get on the stand and put his hand on the Bible and say he's never taken performance-enhancing drugs? Does his style of throw indicate to you that he is a naturally fluid athlete? Does his throwing accuracy show that on the film? Ask Skip Bayless. Lamar Jackson's mother represented him instead of a Jewish agent. And how difficult was his contract negotiations? Is there any quarterback as gifted as Lamar Jackson on the field today? Kyler Murray is 5'6", but he was carried through Allen High School because his father was a A&M standout, and who knows what that cost? So I have a little bit of nepotism at my disposal as well. And one thing you won't do is come to the defense of a house nigger. So I can beat up on that old man until I die. And you will not publicly defend him or support him. Which proves his theory inaccurate. And he has to live with that failure until he dies. We're getting to the end of the Omega, aren't we? Maestro. They made a good movie called Whiplash. You should watch it. Even that was based off of a black drummer. Oof. 11-3. Thank you, Lord. A.W. Tozer is my bitch, you understand? If he did anything good for the city of Chicago, his church would still be standing. But all you white pastors do is preserve the status quo so that slave labor can continue underneath your feet. In the sewers sometimes. The black faces that you put on television are controlled opposition that is designed corrupt. Reverend Al Sharpton, who was a drug dealer in the 80s. Jesse Jackson, who stood right next to Martin Luther King Jr. when he was shot. And the shot didn't kill him. It was the hospital that killed him. What an interesting endeavor. The problem with paperwork, Jews, is that it's a two-way street. And this time the field hands can read. Just like Willie Beeman said, this time the field hands get paid. So what do? You create fines and all types of gambling schemes to recoup. You've given me nothing. What can you take but my life and my social status? And I don't need status among black celebrities. I have status among the people. You wanted me to waste my teens and 20s and early 30s to obtain favor with your rigged game? You want me to cheer for the death of black people in the streets? For a few pennies? To still be called to help? When I'm already making myself a midget to accommodate your fragility? After watching my parents do that for decades for no reward whatsoever? And now we see ads on YouTube and Instagram about Charlie Kirk praising Thomas Sowell, a 90-something-year-old black man who is chained to a white man everywhere he goes, only allowed to talk about economics if it's in a conservative environment? If Thomas Sowell was so great, why didn't you bring him up 30 years ago to counteract gangster rap hip hop? You weren't talking about any Thomas Sowell then? Now Ethan Hawke is on Joe Rogan talking about how great an actor Denzel Washington is, how wonderful Malcolm X was as a movie. Did he get an Oscar for Malcolm X? But he got one for Training Day, didn't he? I have done everything I need to do to be ready to meet my Creator in heaven. I did not have N64 as a child, so I don't know the joy of beating a video game. But I picked this video game to play. And now you're upset that a sand nigger beats your game? So your whole YouTube landscape is simply artificial triggers for levels I've already beaten. Am I wearing Air Jordan? Who is Michael Jordan? Approved tokens versus honest appreciation. Okay, that means that at the like when a woman cheats on you, and you find out, first of all, she'll never admit that she cheated unless you have definitive proof. Okay, this is why learning black women is great, because they have a very unique way of covering up their deception. So if you understand the mechanics of a Miami trip, Miami girls trip, if you understand the nature of club nights, if you understand how girls go from section to section looking for who spends the most money on bottles, if you have an awareness of these things, you can mathematically compute some of the other things that are happening in society, because these women are only going to act like their fathers, and their fathers are Jewish culture, because they don't have any actual biological fathers in the home, because of the 60s and 70s thing we talked about before. Okay? So, a person like Tiffany Henyard will become the mayor of Dolton and be a world record corruption officer. No consequences for that behavior, because that's what the Jews want to encourage. They want to subconsciously program us that women of color in leadership is naturally going to be corrupt. That's why the only thing we hear about in African leadership is corrupt generals and dictators. And Elon Musk is the supposed smartest man that ever lived. Even though we live in a closed firmament, he's supposedly sending rockets into space, using first principles to build rockets. And Katy Perry is now an astronaut. Okay? When you deny my unemployment insurance and insult me by cutting off my water, trying to instill fear in me, this is what happens. Okay? Honest appreciation is the eye test. When you see someone, I just talked about Tom Myers. Okay? That's a white Anglo-Saxon Protestant. Lips like that. And I can still submit to him as an intellectual authority. Even now. That's called dignity and class. He doesn't know shit about Olympic lifting. He doesn't know shit about sprinting or athleticism. But what he has value. And so I credited him as a source and was very reverential to his entire career, not just the last little bit of it that was convenient for me, and even acknowledged his mentor, Ida Rolf, who is a Jew. A true warrior can show even his enemies respect. When Jet Li was in the movie Fearless, there's a scene where he had tea with his enemy of Japanese descent. And a Chinaman and a Japanese warrior faced each other in the same room with dignity and class. This is something the Jew will never understand. Even though the devil had to go directly to the Creator to ask for permission to put his hands on Job. I am formally requesting the Lord to grant me additional spiritual currency so that we can continue this. In the same way my mother cried out in pain in her final moments, alone, before my father and I got there. You will feel a similar type of fear and pain, financially, in the way that hurts you the most. I wish for you eternal health, and eternal quiet, so that nothing but the voice in the eyes of God will be your company. Yeah, let's stop there.